Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. My name is McSnazzi and here we're going to be playing some Planet Zoo today. Now this is my first project in Planet Zoo and on the channel in general. So just to get started here, I'm going to be sort of making zoos a little realistic, but at the same time, still it's a game, so we're going to want to make some pretty stuff at the end of the day. A lot of the inspiration I'm taking for this main gate here, as you'll see me sort of fiddle around here, is I want to make a little like front drive. The sort of thing you have at the beginning of a school, beginning of a zoo, the beginning of like anything. You have this sort of like fire lane, so to say. I don't know if I want to necessarily call it that, but it's sort of a lane at the beginning of any sort of building, where it's just kind of like a little front drive. So I kind of wanted to recreate that. I know we don't have roads here, but I kind of want to make it look like a road, so I try to make the paths look as much like a road as I can. So with here you'll see me mess around with it a lot. It's kind of hard to do because a lot of the pathing system in this game is not the greatest, but you know, we can work with it. So I really want to use the black asphalt here to try to make a drive. And as you'll see here, I struggle with the path system, but I sort of get it right in the end, as we'll see here. And that's sort of what I wanted to do with the path here. I kind of want to make a little crosswalk, and we'll come back to that later when we put in some of the road markings. But now we're going to start on our front entrance, and now is sort of an opportunity for me to talk about what this zoo is going to be, what this project is going to be like. So as you can tell by the title of the video, the zoo is going to be called Gorge Zoo, and I didn't want to use a specific place in the name. I just wanted a general name that kind of gives the sort of biome that this will be in. I'm gonna make it sort of like a northern Midwest sort of zoo, sort of like temperate taiga environment. As you see, I chose the taiga background here for the whole entire biome that you choose the zoo in. So with that being said, I'm pulling a lot of inspiration from zoos I visited in my life, and really there's only been a few, and I will take a lot of design inspirations from specific one in general, that being the Detroit Zoo. So most zoos have this sort of realistic, well of course they're real, but this entrance that are simple. They're not crazy theme park entrances. These are zoos. These are, you know, publicly owned institutions usually. They're for conservation, etc. So a lot of these entrances are super basic. And I kind of wanted to make my entrance basic and realistic. I wanted to look like it could be a real zoo in real life, but you know, I still wanted to look good like a video game. So I try to recreate that here. We're going to use this sort of basic gray sort of outline here for all of our main entrance buildings. And what I'm trying to do is have these kiosks where you walk through, as you'll see later when I put in the entrances for the actual guests. Sort of little areas that you walk through, so you can have a bunch of separate lines in order to get into the park. Now what I'm doing here is I want to put a little bit of a homemade, my own sort of stone top here. So it's not just a flat roof, but it's not just a boring pitched roof, because I kind of want to do a big letter sign, as you'll see I make here once we get there, that says Gorge Zoo across the top, sort of blended. And I want to make it grand but realistic. I don't want it to be too crazy, but I still want it to look good. So I think we're sort of establishing it here with this stone. Looking back now, I wish I would have used maybe a bigger piece, because I have to go through and select all these little individual, and I mess up there, as you can tell. I gotta select all these little individual stones pieces in order to copy and duplicate them back. I found out a better way of doing it is you just select the whole thing and remove all the larger pieces so you get it in the end. And I am familiar with Planet Coaster and the building system, sort of. I played a lot of Planet Coaster, you know, I'm familiar, but it's been a while, so you know, you gotta get used to it again. And you can see in this first sort of episode where we're building the entrance here, is I'm sort of getting a feel for the building system again. I don't know what parts we have, I don't know necessarily all the styles we have yet. And as we move on in the series, of course I'm going back and talking over this after I've already recorded a lot. So I know it's going to get better, it's going to look better, but I'm really happy with how this front entrance will turn out in the end, as we'll see here soon. Here's me building the sign. I think it's a really great tip to move onto flat ground and use the advanced move tool in order to make these sort of letter signs. Now I use a little trick there where I started with a wall piece and I put it underground so that it'll make a building section for you. As you can see, I'm editing building 3, I think it says. So then when you want to bring the whole thing over all together, you can. And all these pieces will sort of move together in the building. That's something we had to do a lot in Planet Coaster. I don't know, maybe there's a workaround now where you can just select a bunch of pieces and move them and make them into their own thing. But I was just making sure that we can do it. Here you see the sign sort of coming on here. This is sort of what I wanted to do initially, you know. I had this idea in my head where it's kind of like an arching Timber Gorge text over this zoo sort of text there, and sort of a at you sort of sign. Nothing too grand, nothing too fancy, but you know, it looks nice. It looks like this is something you could see in real life at a zoo that you were visiting, and I kind of like that aesthetic. Now here I'm looking through little pieces. I was looking for those animal shapes that you see in all the trailers, and it's on the inside of the entrance building they build for you. And I sort of find them here in the end. And I really wanted to put these big animal silhouette shapes over the sides of both of the Timber Gorge Zoo entrance logo. I think it looks great, and this is something they do at the Detroit Zoo where I take inspiration from. They have this sort of big famous water tower with the silhouettes of animals painted on it. So I like the idea of having the silhouettes of a bunch of different zoo animals sort of there when you walk in. It just makes it look like you're about to enter a zoo. And I just think it looks great. I realize I want to have equal animals on each side there, so I add the camel. This little cut, I sort of dabbled with some coloring. I'm not sure how I wanted to color this. You know, the white seemed really monochromatic, very bland, just sort of the one thing. But at the same time, it looks more realistic that way. It looks nice that way. You don't want a bunch of bright colors because it just wouldn't happen, you know. Over time, if we're thinking realistic-wise, weather's just going to wear down these colors. So you're going to want to pick basic colors. And I think I stick with the white on the animals, but I will change the letters here soon. So you can see I'm sort of finishing up the sides here, tidying up everything. There's a little cut there. I added signs in, so we sort of had signs that said emissions on it, where people would line up, and there's also the 2 smaller booths on the side. I did season passes. This is stuff I've seen at real zoos where they have season pass extra lines so you can get in quicker. Here I'm trying to put some scaffolding on these letters so it doesn't look like they're just floating. It looks better, and I didn't do that great of a job, I admit it, for this initial sort of scaffolding take, but I think it's good enough for now. We can go back and fix it later if it starts bugs. Here I'm going to start add some lighting. This sort of just adds some more pop to the walls. Makes it look a lot more realistic and just something you would see. You know, it's going to look good if we turn on nighttime, and it just looks good from sort of a realistic standpoint as well. And here's me looking through a lot of the parts, and I wanted to add something to this wall because it's so bland. It looks realistic, but at the same time, you need to add a little bit of texture to it. Add some props on the walls that just look nice in order to make the wall seem less boring. And that's what I do, and I think it turns out great in the end. So now I'm going to start putting these logs that I put on the sides along the bottom as well. And this really sort of builds a border, so if you're creating in this game or anywhere, it just adds a little more sort of depth to the walls so they're not so just one-dimensionally and bland. It looks like, you know, they're kind of raised in spots. Adds a little texture to the walls as well. It just makes it look better. It really does. I don't get too extreme here with detail. You know, I'm just kind of getting used to the pieces here. This is sort of my first day on the build. I played during the beta, but this was day one. Got home from work, got on the game, and just started building in the sandbox mode. And I just really wanted to build a nice front entrance. So here we choose these nice little pieces, and I wish they had, if you played Planet Coaster, they had these nice little wall posters that just said like Planet Coaster. They had a picture of a kid on one, and I wish they had these in these games. If they do, I just couldn't find it. So I chose those little like white, kind of modern animal outline shape things. I think they look great. It's more white, of course, onto the already white background, but I think it looks good. Here I'm adding the entrances in. These are the things people are going to walk through. Also going to add these info booths on the side just so it looks like they're ticket booths. They're not actually ticket booths, but they look like they're ticket booths, and I really like the look of that. Here's me putting on some practical doors here, just so, you know, we have some sort of realistic functionality here. Nothing grand, nothing that looks great. Just making sure there's a door in every one of these little kiosk areas, as they are separated throughout the building. Just make it look like it's meant to be. And getting back to sort of the style I want to go for. You know, realistic, but looks good. You know, I want to think about all the practicality and backstage of the builds, and I just want to make a good looking zoo that could actually be dropped in the real world and work. Here I'm sort of putting it onto the front entrance. It was kind of hard because when you select the whole building and try to move it, it kind of puts in a heat map and you can't really see the path, so I couldn't really put it super close. As you see, I'm struggling here. I'm trying to get it as close as I can so I can have this sort of front drive area, and the paths are always wonky in this game, so I don't really want to drag the path, so I'm trying to move it as close as I can so they kind of meet. And I kind of just settle here with a little bit of green area in front because I want to put some flower beds in, as we will further along in the episode. Just add some greenery up front. You know, it's got to be the entrance. It's got to look good. It's got to be a little grand, little manicured, but not like crazy. This isn't like some multi-million-dollar zoo operation here. This is what it is. And here's a little trick that I'm going to use to make these sort of parking lines here. I'm going to make this little pedestrian crossing in the front drive here with these art shapes. And what you can do with these art shapes is you can just paint them yellow or white, whatever you think in your area how the traffic lines look. And you can kind of make these little patterns. You can make it look like a pedestrian walk. As you see here, I do the outline of the square, and then I'm going to hash mark it so it looks like it's a pedestrian walkway. There's no markings in this game, but you can sink these far enough into the ground where it works. A little bit of shots how it looks. It's starting to all come together now, and I kind of really like how this front entrance is set up. I wanted to create sort of a curb here because it just looks like it goes from the main road onto this path, and I really wish I used a little bigger of a piece here, but you know, it works for now practically. We can go back and change it later if we need to, but for now I think it works as a curb. It's sort of a separation point between the road and the sort of main plaza walkway here. And for this main plaza, you know, it's not finished. This is just the base outline. This is the first episode. This is the front entrance. This is where we begin, and we're gonna go far from here. And I've already recorded a few episodes in advance when I'm, you know, recording this voiceover, and we start to get a little better in our designs. I get more familiar with the pieces, and the designs just start to look better, and it just fills out the more we add. So I'll let you know that now, even if it looks a little not so filled out yet. This is great things that they added to the game, these mulch pieces. I remember back in Planet Coaster, all we had to for the mulch was this coconut piece that we had to paint brown and shove in the ground to sort of look like textured mulch. But now they have a bunch of different sizes of mulch that we can do here. As I'm making these flower beds here, I end up sinking these half walls into the ground to make this sort of base, and I think it turns out really great. You can't use that technique everywhere because, you know, they'll kind of stick out and they're limited to the grid when you use the wall pieces instead of decoration pieces, so that's a drawback there. But I just want to add some light flowerage up to this front entrance area. I sort of repeat some of the flower beds. You know, you're not always going to be making individual flower beds, and you don't want to overdo it either. Too much color, too much of the same flower, too much of like a bunch of really colorful little flowers just everywhere just overwhelms. Doesn't look realistic. It just looks too busy and crazy. So I went for that little simpler style, you know. They're mirrored and it just looks good. Here I'm sort of messing with the walls here. The nice part about Planet Zoo now is we have these barriers, these like wall systems, and they look great. There's a few to choose from, and they look great, and I'm trying to figure out what I want to use for like the zoo walls in general. And I end up going with these the wood gate. It just looks more natural to me. I like the chain link fence, but at the end of the day, I don't want people seeing like in from the outside. Most zoos I feel like you don't see. They either use like brick wall or some sort of solid fence so you can't just see in from the outside when you're pulling up, which I think is, you know, warranted. So I end up going this wood. It looks great. I want to lift it up so it looks nice. We're gonna take these trees, we're gonna copy paste them and move them around. It's a little trick that I think is a good way to fill up areas without being too meticulous, without having to place every individual tree, and it looks natural if you just copy and paste these little groups of trees and foliage. It fills up the area quick and it just makes it look really nice. And that's something, an idea you guys can use in your own zoos. It's an easy way to fill up the area without having to be too much of a pro and place everything in. So now we're going to be going in some glam shots in real time. I'd like to thank everyone now who tuned into the video and watched. Thank you guys for your support and everything, and hope you enjoyed the video. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed what you saw here. I really like how it turned down the end. I think this is a nice shot there of the entrance. Thanks again everyone who tuned into the video. I'll be posting the next one here soon on the channel, so stay tuned if you want to see that one. We're going to move past the front entrance, sort of getting into the landscaping, building the staff buildings and paths, so we can put animals in here soon. Thanks again everyone.